After years of being in this industry, there are several mistakes I see people make related to estate planning. We're going to cover off on them today. Here's the crap I see people do with estate planning. The number one mistake I see over and over again is simply procrastination. People put it off. I used to think it was because people don't like thinking about their death. They don't like talking about it. But that hasn't been my experience. And in fact, they've done some studies about it. One recent study, they asked people, why do you put it off? You know what the number one answer was? It wasn't thinking about their death. It was procrastination. They simply just don't make it a priority. And it makes a whole lot of sense. We've got all sorts of things going on in our lives, and nobody thinks they're going to die tomorrow. So they think, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. The other thing is, for me personally, I get why people don't want to go talk to lawyers. Lawyers aren't exactly the most exciting people in the bunch. I'm sorry for any lawyers out there. It's just the truth. I don't think you guys are the life of the party. And also, you're really expensive. So when it comes down to all those different things, I think that's why people put it off. But to reiterate, and hopefully maybe gain a little bit of the love from my lawyer friends, this is extremely important. So don't put it off any longer. Mistake number 2 is people think that a will is enough. I think it's because this is what has been propagated into us from society and especially Hollywood. I was just watching a movie the other night with my wife where a girl was supposed to inherit a business from her mom, but in the will, she stated that she's got to do all sorts of crazy stuff. I think she's supposed to fall in love. Sorry, honey, wasn't really paying attention. But point being is, that has been ingrained in our society. You need a will, you need a will. That's how you tell people what to do. A will is extremely important. And the way I explain a will is I try to simplify it. It's a set of instructions. That's all it is. When I die, this is what I want to happen. Great. You know what it may not avoid? Probate. That to me is one of the biggest goals of estate planning. So what is probate? Probate is essentially the process after you pass away of how you settle your estate, meaning make sure assets are distributed, people get things. Now, the government wants to make sure that this is done in a manner that is legal, that is clean, right? And so in order to do that, they have the probate process where you have to go through the court system and you got to use attorneys and we got to make sure everything's cool and clean. Now, why do we want to avoid probate? Because probate is expensive and time consuming. Here in Michigan, when I talk to my lawyer friends, they say it takes roughly between 8 months to 2 years, and it'll cost between 6 to 8% of the total value of your estate on average. Think about that for a second. A $500,000 estate, not all that uncommon around where I'm at here in Southern Michigan. Other areas, that's probably way low. But a $500,000 estate, it's going to cost you $30,000 to $40,000 just to settle that thing in court. Not to mention you're grieving the loss of a loved one. You've got this additional stress, and you're not going to get any of their assets, typically 8 months to 2 years. It's a huge shield. So just understand, going back to my central point, a will is not going to solve all your problems. It's extremely important, but it's only one part of what you should have in your plan, typically. Mistake number 3, setting up beneficiaries, but not updating them. This one I can explain relatively quickly because I think it'll stick with you. This does happen. Let's just say husband and wife in their 20s, they take out a life insurance policy, we'll say on the husband. Husband's the insured, the wife's the beneficiary. Great. Things don't work out great. They end up getting divorced a little while later. Then the husband gets remarried, has some kids, grows old, eventually passes away. What about that old life insurance policy they took out? Who's still the beneficiary? Who gets the money? Yeah, this happens. It actually does happen. You have to update beneficiaries. A lot of times beneficiaries will override anything else, including if you've got a will and trust and things like that. It's all about how everything is structured. So main point being is, don't just set up a beneficiary and think everything's hunky-dory. Update it. The other thing is, a lot of times I see people will get a trust done, which is all well and fine. They get this great estate plan, but it's not going to work unless you update your beneficiaries to have the trust be one of your beneficiaries or the beneficiary, depending on how things are structured. Mistake number 4, thinking that all estate attorneys are created equal and that they're all extremely competent. Estate attorneys are human, and anybody who has worked in any industry will tell you there's really good people in that industry and there's really bad. I've seen the same with estate attorneys, and I have seen the bad. You don't want the bad. Here's some of the bad. I have seen someone who wrote up a financial power of attorney. So mom became incapacitated. They had this financial power of attorney. They bring it to me and say, hey, we want to be able to make decisions about her accounts. Guess what? It wasn't written very well. The language was too vague. So when I brought it to the company holding the accounts, they said, there's too much liability here. We can't accept that. So what do they do now? They can't do anything because mom is the only one on that account and their financial power of attorney doesn't work well. The other thing I will say along these lines is estate attorneys aren't financial planners and they're not tax professionals. So sometimes when they write up these trusts and those types of documents, it doesn't take those things into account, and it can be a mess in terms of taxes and financial planning. So here's the secret sauce. When you're going to do an estate plan, make sure you've got a tax professional, make sure you've got a financial planner and the estate attorney all working in conjunction. Because when that happens, then you get all of these subject matter experts ensuring that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, everything's going to work in conjunction with one another, and it's not going to kind of leave one of those areas out high and dry and create issues down the road. Mistake number 5. This to me is the biggest one. I see it over and over again. So let's think about retirement assets. You've got pre-tax, like your traditional 401k, traditional IRA. We haven't paid taxes on this money yet. We're going to pay it when we pull it out. So if you pass away, that money goes to your beneficiary. If it goes to your spouse, no issues. They treat it just the same you did. If it goes to anybody except your spouse, now there is what's called the 10-year rule. When it goes to your beneficiary, they have 10 years to take that money out. Every single dime is taxable. So most of the time when parents pass away and they give money, their kids are in some of the highest earning years of their life. So they're already in a higher tax bracket, and now they have 10 years to pull all this money out that mom and dad gave them. It's a burden. It doesn't feel real good because you're thinking, oh man, how am I going to do this and not get hammered on taxes? It can be very difficult because you're already making a lot of money. This money goes on top of that. It could bump you into the next tax bracket. Let me throw a separate scenario at you. What if mom and dad were doing Roth conversions, meaning moving it from traditional over to Roth? They take the tax hit then, they don't have to worry about taxes. What happens to those accounts? Those accounts, when they pass away, they still pass to the beneficiaries. Let's just pretend it's the kids again. But instead of it being a burden, no, it's a gift. Because guess what? That money grows tax-free for 10 years. Think about that. At just over 7% return, that money is going to double in 10 years. Completely tax-free. No longer a burden, but a gift. I wish more people thought about this ahead of time because I've seen the inherited IRAs really create some trouble for people. Unfortunately, they end up paying a lot of taxes. So when it comes to estate planning, I would say there's the legal side and all these legal documents, but there's also the financial side. You got to make sure your financial house is in order as well. Mistake number 6, set it and forget it. I've seen this a lot where I'll ask people, hey, do you have an estate plan? And they happily say, yeah, got a trust, got the will, financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, we're all set. Great. When's the last time that was reviewed? When was it written? 20 years ago. That's tough. You should be reviewing it, I would say, roughly every few years. Here's why. Your life changes, right? Relationships change. There's all sorts of things that should change. But also, laws change. Tax laws change. Legal laws change. So if you've got something from 20 years ago, it likely needs to be updated in order to make sure it's current. So once again, it's one of those simple things, just like setting up a beneficiary. Make sure you're reviewing your documentation every so often, just to make sure everything's going to work the way it should. Those are the 6 mistakes I see time and time again. But I think this goes back to my overall point. When it comes to estate planning, really financial planning as a whole, it is a fluid process. Laws are constantly changing. Your life is changing. Markets change. You need to ensure that you're always changing with it in order to optimize your success. Thanks.